Level 1. The Royal Blood. You are not just born into power, you are born into a specific name that already echoes through history. Not a generic prince, but a son of a dynasty. Maybe a Henry II of England, inheriting a web of lands across France and England. Maybe a Philip II of France, raised in a court obsessed with reclaiming power from overmighty nobles. Maybe a Frederick Barbarossa, expected to restore imperial dominance in a fractured empire. Your identity is not yours. It is a continuation. From the moment you open your eyes, your bloodline decides your enemies. It decides your allies. It decides the wars you will inherit before you ever choose one. You are taught languages not for culture, but for command. Latin for law. French for diplomacy. Your tutors do not prepare you for a peaceful life. They prepare you to sit on a throne surrounded by men who would gladly replace you if given the chance. You study past kings not as stories, but as warnings. You learn how William the Conqueror took a crown by force, and how easily it could be lost the same way. Because in the medieval world, kingship is not guaranteed by birth alone. It is proven, constantly. Level 2, the Fragile Crown. When your father dies, the crown does not smoothly pass, it trembles. Look at King John of England. He inherited a vast realm, but within years, he lost Normandy, angered his barons, and was forced into the Magna Carta, a document that stripped royal power in ways no king before him had accepted. The lesson is immediate. A crown is not control, it is a test. At your coronation, the rituals feel eternal. The oil, the oath, the crown placed on your head in God's name. But behind the ceremony is calculation. Nobles are watching your first decisions. Will you reward loyalty? Will you punish betrayal? Or will you hesitate? Because hesitation in a king is not seen as caution, it is seen as weakness. Even great kings faced this moment. Charlemagne built an empire stretching across Europe, but every piece of it depended on his personal authority. Without him, it fractured. That is the hidden truth. Medieval kings do not inherit stable systems, they inherit fragile balances. Level 3. The Game of Thrones. Once crowned, you enter a constant negotiation with power. Kings like Louis IX of France ruled with a reputation for justice, personally hearing cases under an oak tree. But even he balanced piety with politics, ensuring loyalty while projecting righteousness. Justice was not just moral, it was strategic. Then there are kings like Richard the Lionheart, who spent most of his reign outside England fighting in the Third Crusade. He became a legend of warfare, but his absence forced others to manage his kingdom, creating instability at home. A king cannot be everywhere, but wherever he is not, power shifts. Your court becomes a battlefield without swords. Nobles compete for influence. Advisors whisper conflicting strategies. Marriage alliances are negotiated like treaties. You do not just rule land, you manage ambition, and ambition, in this world, is endless. Level 4. The King at War. War is not optional, it is expected. Consider Edward III of England, who launched the 100 Years' War, claiming the French throne itself. His victories at Crecy and Poitiers made him powerful, but also locked generations into conflict. A single king's decision can echo for a century. Or Saladin, who united Muslim territories and recaptured Jerusalem. His leadership was not just military, it was symbolic. He became a figure larger than his kingdom, representing resistance and unity. As a medieval king, you lead from the front. You ride into battle not just to win, but to be seen winning. Because your army does not just fight for land, they fight for you. If you fall, the army collapses. If you hesitate, they lose confidence. So you charge, even when fear is real. Especially when it is real. Level 5. The Architect of Power. Kings also build, not just structures, but systems. Alfred the Great fortified towns, created legal codes, and defended England against Viking invasions. His strength was not just in battle, but in organization. Meanwhile, rulers like Justinian I reshaped law itself through the Corpus Juris Civilis, influencing legal systems for centuries. This is the deeper layer of kingship, not just surviving, but shaping the future. Castles rise across landscapes, not just as homes, but as statements. A castle says, "This land is controlled." A cathedral says, "This rule is blessed." Infrastructure becomes propaganda in stone. But every project has a cost. Taxes rise, peasants strain, and the distance between king and commoner grows. A king must appear powerful, but not oppressive, strong, but not blind. That balance is where many fail. Level 6. The Church and the Crown. No medieval king rules alone. The church stands beside, and sometimes above, the throne. Henry IV learned this during the investiture controversy, when he was forced to stand barefoot in the snow at Canossa, begging the Pope for forgiveness. A king humbled before a higher authority. Religion is not separate from rule. It defines it. Kings claim divine right, but that claim must be recognized by the church. Without it, legitimacy cracks. At the same time, kings use religion as a tool. Crusades are declared. Enemies are labeled as threats not just to the state, but to faith itself. This transforms wars into something larger, something harder to question. Level 7. The Shadow of Disaster. Then comes something no king can control. The Black Death. It wipes out entire populations, reshaping Europe overnight. Kings watch their tax base disappear. Their armies shrink, their authority weaken. In England, after the plague, labor shortages empowered peasants, leading to unrest like the Peasants' Revolt during the reign of Richard II. A boy king facing a nation in anger. This is where kingship is tested beyond war. Can you maintain order when the world itself seems to be collapsing? Can authority survive when fear spreads faster than commands? Level 8. The Aging Ruler. Time changes everything. Even kings like Philip IV of France, once powerful and feared, could not escape the consequences of their decisions. His conflicts with the church reshaped European politics, but also created long-term instability. As you age, your strength fades, but your decisions remain. Your heirs grow impatient. Your enemies grow bold. The court becomes quieter, but more dangerous, because now people are planning for a world without you. Succession becomes the final challenge. If handled well, your dynasty continues. If not, everything you built collapses into civil war. Level 9. The Legacy. After death, the king becomes a story. Henry V of England is remembered as a heroic warrior after Agincourt. King John of England is remembered as a failure. Richard III is remembered through a mix of history and propaganda, shaped by those who replaced him. The truth is often lost. What remains is narrative. Chroniclers decide what you were. Hero, tyrant, reformer, failure. And that version of you lives longer than the real one ever did. Because medieval kings were not just rulers. They were symbols of power, of fear, of order, of chaos. And here's the part most people never realize. Every king you remember, every name, every legend, stood alone at some point, wearing a crown that looked powerful from the outside but felt like pressure from every direction at once. They commanded armies, shaped nations, and changed history. But they were also trapped inside roles they could not escape. The medieval king was not just the most powerful man in the kingdom, he was the most exposed. And the moment he stopped proving he deserved that crown, someone else was always ready to take it. And now when you hear the word king, you won't just picture a crown, you'll picture the pressure behind it, the decisions no one saw, and the cost history rarely talks about. If you want more stories like this that break down power, history, and the truth behind it, make sure you like and subscribe, because the next one might completely change how you see the world.